Hello, Outfest family. Thank you so much for joining us for the Q&A for Cicada. Hopefully you've just watched the film. If not, pause this, watch the movie, come back. We'll be waiting here for you. My name is Daniel Crook. I'm the programming coordinator at Outfest. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I am absolutely delighted to welcome the cast and crew of Cicada to the virtual Q&A. Welcome, guys, and please feel free to introduce yourself to the audience.
Thanks for having us. I'm Matt. I'm the director, writer, and actor. My pronouns are he, him, his. This is Kieran.
I'm Kieran Mulcair. I co-directed. My pronouns are he, him, his as well.
Yay, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Sheldon Brown, he, him, his, and I played the role of Sam, and I'm also a writer on the film as well.
Hello, my name is Jeremy Trong. I am one of the producers on Cicada, and I also go by he, him, his.
Excellent. So it's a shame that the folks at home aren't going to get to see the conversation we had before this got started, but I love like the energy you guys have together. I mean, everybody is so jovial and genial and has so much to say to one another, which I think might suggest that this was a highly collaborative effort. If your titles as co-writer, co-director, star, co-writer, star, if that's not any indication. So I'm really curious to hear about the genesis of this project and how you all got together to work on it, because it's clear that you have so much affection for one another, and it must have been a really fun set to be on. So I'm curious to hear about how we all ended up in this room together. How'd the project get started?
Well, Matt, was born of Matt's imagination and his largely his lived experience. And Matt and I connected. I saw Jay and Pluto, an early series that he had written, starred in, and directed. You directed that too, right, Matt?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I saw that a few years ago, and we connected there. And then we ended up, he was looking for an acting class, and so I recommended my acting teacher's class. And my experience was entirely acting up until that point. And then maybe a year later, actually, or was it 2 years? I don't know. Sometime later, he wrote one of the best scripts I'd ever read, and he asked if I would co-direct it. And that was how I got involved, and Matt can explain more, or Sheldon, when you guys met. What, Sheldon, you want to?
So actually me and Matt went on a date actually some years ago, like maybe I don't even know how long that was, like 4 years ago maybe. And we kind of kept in touch and developed a good friendship, and he started talking to me about this project that he was working on and would I be interested in coming on. And a series of events happened in my life and his life as well, that actually just brought the whole piece together. And so, he asked me like, hey, would you still want to be a part of this project? And I agreed, and we collaborated and came up with some great narrative stories for both our own individual personal journeys and how they are, all throughout the film, but also working together to kind of collaborate on our journey as in our relationship. So it was a very, very kind of random happenstance that this all came together, but it was beautiful too.
Jeremy, this is all news to me. I thought I met you guys on backstage. So Jeremy, what did you want to say?
Yeah, I guess, so we shot this film in July of 2018. And it was a very fast process, because I think the script came to me maybe in like March or April. So, within like 2 months, basically, we were kind of going for it. And I had known Matt previously from a web series that he had directed and created called Baghdad, Florida. And that's where we first met. So when he brought this to me, I was pretty curious and interested, because it was also my first feature. And, like normally if you told me we're going to do feature in 2 months, that'd be impossible. But, Kieran was there already. It was very autobiographical, and we shot a lot in locations that were really real to the moment. So I think it kind of all came together really quickly, and we just went for it.
Aw, it's so nice to hear, like, how it all came together. I had to be reminded. You know, this is my, I mean, these guys, look at them. Look at them. They're beautiful. They're so talented. I miss all of them. It's been so long. I was working on this film in the winter at my parents' house. And the day I finished, I had been thinking about Sheldon the whole time. And the day I finished, I texted him and I said, hey, I have this project I think you'd be great for. And he said, I'm actually in New York right now. And I think it was the next day, Sheldon, we got a drink at Syndicated because he's in Chicago usually. So I was thinking it was going to be like this big back and forth, but it was just like that beautiful, like, okay, this is happening. And it was more than one date. I had him in my mind. It was a few days. He was in from Chicago, and it made a mark on me. I always thought he was just really special, and it was and it stuck with me the few days. And yeah, so this is Cicada.
I think that's wonderful. I have to ask, when you're writing and when you're directing and when you're performing in a movie that is so heavy on wonderfully naturalistic dialogue in situations, I'm wondering, from all three of those perspectives, what are the challenges in bringing that to life? You know, it's always like the old joke, how much work goes into making something look natural on the screen. Obviously, if you just had two people talking on screen, but with no interesting, you know, direction or great performances, you don't actually have much there. So I'm curious, in a movie that feels so stripped from life, what were some of the challenges in bringing those naturalistic elements to the screen?
I will say that you know, the part of the journey of being able to, of taking a story that's so closely related to your own personal journey, there's a balance that you always have to find, right? You have your own emotional journey that you've gone through to process and to navigate your experiences in your own life. And then you're finding a way to translate that on the screen that feels very visceral and real for yourself, and also balancing, okay, now I'm transported back into this place. And you're learning different things like, oh, I thought that I processed this already. I thought this wasn't going to hit me as hard. Or why am I not connecting to this moment that is actually very real for me? And what kind of, you know, navigation that you have to do through those moments. So the process involves a lot of striking a balance. And what I really loved with Matt and with Kieran is that we spent so much time talking about each moment and what we wanted to get from those moments, and what really digging deep into ourselves and talking about how we felt as, you know, the person, not just the, you know, as the actor, not just the character in those moments, so that we can be supportive of one another in those moments, so that we can hold each other and allow each other to actually go to these places, and really not keep anything away from our viewers. For the people who are going to get so much out of this story, who may be, you know, processing their own journeys that they're going on, their own emotions and traumas that they're dealing with, and how much of a gift that is to be able to open honestly to those folks and not keep anything held inside. So it took a lot of work. It took a lot of talking. It took a lot of, okay, that didn't work, that didn't read, we were watching this over again. Let's go back and do this again and see if we can revisit the scene and get something different. So it's like a trial and error the entire time.
And Sheldon it's a testament to his modesty that he's saying it took so much time, because if you're lucky enough to work with an actor as talented as he is at bringing that forward, you don't really have much of a job to do as a director. That said, there were other actors on set. No, that said, we did take advantage of what pre-production time we could to rehearse, because we knew we wouldn't, in the tight amount of time we were getting, we're not getting that much coverage. A lot of scenes were going to be 2 shots we knew ahead. So making sure that the event of the scene was very clear, making sure that every actor was really steeped in the circumstances going in was really important. Talking about sensitive issues, I'm a sex abuse survivor myself, and it was one of the reasons I was so drawn to the material, and also one of the reasons I felt such a big responsibility for making this look real and relatable, because I've seen it handled so poorly, you know, in the past, and it's such an insult if you've been through something to see something sensationalized or thrown up for, you know, for an effect that really doesn't honor the full human who might experience that. So rehearsals were very important, and making sure that the event of each scene was clear was kind of the biggest priority. But we were really blessed with such talented people to work with. It was, you know, and an amazing script. So I think that naturalism really was originally a blessing from their talent and the script.
And Kieran over here, I mean, so much of, I mean, what Sheldon just said, so much of the process is like making sure you're okay, and like, you know, putting up certain boundaries, and like being okay with things, and being able to, you know, function. And then to like go into writing it, it was like stripping that away. And then to go into production is stripping it away again, and like trying to be raw is just like so difficult. And these two down here, it's the only reason that I mean, I was able to do anything on set. One note on the authenticity of some dialogue is actually some of it was real. We were talking to Gil, a friend of mine, who had just come up for the day, and we were going through take after take after take, and I said, I told her my story, and then she just went off script and told me hers, and she's the last one of the sequence where I'm just telling my friends that, you know, about my history, and she just lost it, and she had never told anybody outside of her family, I don't believe, and this was like her coming out. So I knew after that day that we were doing something right. And yeah.
That word authenticity is what I was thinking as well. And I'm so grateful for all of you sharing your stories, not just here in this Q&A, but for sharing them in the film. It takes a tremendous amount of courage, and all of us viewers are so lucky that we have your experience on screen in such a tender, beautiful, deeply human way. And on that note, as it's been alluded to a few times here, obviously, Matt, you were dealing with a bit of autobiography when you were bringing this story to light. So I'm curious, what was the experience like of adapting your own life for the screen?
Yeah, I feel very naked in this film, more ways than one. And at the end of the day, I don't want to get into like how autobiographical it is. I mean, it's a culmination of events and people, and a few years of my life in one summer. But the person who did it isn't in my family. But I do think it's important to note that 90% of victims are victimized by somebody within, you know, somebody that the family knows. And a lot of times you hear like, oh, it's this guy that's just like hanging out on playgrounds with like kids, or, you know, some guy hanging out behind the toy store. I don't know what people say anymore, but it's 90% of it happens by somebody, you know, the family knew.
Please, Sheldon, go ahead.
Yeah, it's, you know, I was very fortunate to be brought, you know, when I talked to Matt about, you know, some of the trauma that I went through prior to doing this, coming onto the film, that he very much wanted me to, you know, feel free to bring that in when crafting this journey that Sam goes on in the film. And for me, you know, it's something that happened so recently prior to filming, that it was cathartic to be able to really vocalize what I felt and vocalize the things that had happened to me. and just kind of be able to go through this kind of self-reflection. And you know, it's especially as a gay man myself, I feel like, you know, there's always this either trauma or hardship that you have to go through, and we are called to be able to take those things and then craft it into something that's powerful and that, you know, protects us, that lifts us, you know. And so this whole process of translating trauma into narrative, it's a very emotional and cathartic, but it's also a very powerful journey to go on at the same time. So I was completely grateful to be able to take the moments to process this and to really think about these things as far as what does this story mean to me and to whoever, you know, that watches that.
I think what the two of you have just said speaks to a sense of generosity that's in the film in terms of how people can connect with one another and give part of themselves to one another. It requires a recognition and a reckoning with yourself as well, of course. But I thought that was so beautiful. I appreciate you sharing that perspective. And another thing you just said, Sheldon, it makes me think about how the film is dealing with the notion of identity, what it means to be gay, what it means to be a survivor, what it means to be a Black gay man, what it means to be bisexual, what it means to be a son. And sort of the movie, in my opinion, is dealing with this notion of what of that identity belongs to you and what is projected onto you by other people. And I'm curious if you wanted to speak on that notion of identity in the film.
Yeah, I mean, I'm learning and discovering that we exist in multitudes and multiplicity and intersections, you know, intersectionality. A part of this journey for Sam is that he struggled with his sexuality. You know, he struggled with owning his identity and figuring out what that all means. And it is especially hard as a Black gay man in this country to stake out a place for yourself, to stake out, you know, to tell people, to show people who you are without them making any assumption as to what that means. And also for them to interpret whoever you are in some ways that you didn't, you know, that's not warranted. And so, you know, for me, I've dealt with that my entire life of trying to, okay, what does it mean now that, okay, I'm questioning. Okay, now I do like dudes. Okay, now I gotta tell my family. And my family's from Ohio, a very conservative state. And I'm a Black man. And, you know, what does this all mean? And then also getting into relationships. And now that this sense of identity changes. Or it grows, right? And so, you know, it's a journey that I'm loving and I'm embracing because I want people to know who I am and I want them to get it right when they, you know, when they see me. And that, I think the journey is embracing that willingness to be able to vocalize who you are and stand firm in your convictions and your beliefs and your values, and not letting anyone challenge that, and not allowing anyone to swallow that, and realizing that we all have something to bring and to give because of who we are, because of our humanity. And it doesn't matter what kind of preconceived notions that we may have, it's going to be a learning experience when I walk into the room. You know, you will learn who I am. And we're going to be so much better from that.
Thank you for that. And I don't want to cut anybody else off if anyone else wanted to speak on that, or I can ask another question.
Yeah, I think one part of the film, we're talking about just the nature of coming out and knowing, like, you know, why I'm attracted to men. I for so long felt that it was because of something that had happened, and part of just the huge barrier of getting through all that was just like, I didn't want to cease, like my, I don't know, I didn't want to give him any more power. Like I didn't want him to be the reason that I was this way. And you know, I think that I would have been the way I am, no matter what. But it was just that back and forth in my head. And like, I think, you know, bi erasure is a big thing. And I think it prevents a lot of people from like, experimenting. And we, you know, just because some guy was only having sex with women in his early 20s, it doesn't mean like that his identity has like fixed in being gay because he's just like now married to a man or has been with somebody for, you know, a couple decades. So I wanted to say something about, we had one viewer who came, it was a friend of one of our investors, and he, like, I think we're past this point of like seeing gay sex on film, like it's, you know, it's 2020. And so he watched the sex scenes through his hands. And it was like so wild. Like he knew it was a gay film going into it. But it's like, you know, so much of identity is tied to sex for men. And I thought it was important to put that on screen. And after seeing that, I was just like, yes, it's still very important. Like, you know, people are still uncomfortable with it. And like, it shouldn't be that way.
No, it's all the more reason to keep making movies and keep sharing these stories. So people see that on the screen, they are confronted with it, or comforted by it, depending on their perspective. I want to ask one more question here because I know we're running out of time. One thing I just don't want to get lost here in this wonderful discussion is that the movie is also pretty funny. The film has an excellent sense of humor. I have to say, I can't stop thinking about what's the line, 101.5 F phlegm. That is just like lodged in my brain now. So I was wondering if you all wanted to speak on striking that balance of life, really, between the good humor of this film and the more sobering, serious subject matter.
Yeah, I love it. I would try to explain this film to people, and I would get a few sentences in and say, but it's really funny, you know, and nobody could fathom how it could possibly be funny. But that was part of the reason. I mean, we explored, and it comes with sexuality. It comes with also hiding the pain of abuse. But and I can say from personal experience, I've actually shared details of one of my instances of abuse, and people laughed. And humor can become a sort of vector for taking on an identity as the clown, you know, because that's where we fit into society, either based on our sexuality or based on things that have happened to us. If we can make people laugh, then we know we have a place, and we will be heard, at least the funny things we have to say. And I think that theme is explored so beautifully in that bluff scene in the film. But sorry. Sorry. And I've had such direct experience with it. But Matt is genuinely witty, and it's not something that a word I throw around. It's a very rare thing when you meet someone who's genuinely witty. And that was the fact that he could take something painful and make it jump off the page with wit and appeal to both people who understand the feeling of having to be in that place and people who are both enjoying the wit and absorbing something very important, was really, you know, why I fell in love with it. Okay.
Oh, thanks, Kieran. Yeah, so much of the reason that I didn't come out any earlier, it was 13 years until I told my best friend, Jill, is that like I was always able to just change the subject. And I was always getting into trouble, and I was always like making jokes, and it was like my power, but it was also like, you know, my curse. And I really like just hated comedy and anything funny for a while there, because I thought that it was, you know, it was the reason that I hadn't come forward with anything sooner. But it just doesn't go away. So you know, it's just like, it's just a part of me now. But I don't think I'm like particularly funny in this. I don't know. I haven't seen the film in a long time, so I don't know. I felt like I had ruined everybody's Saturday night here. I thought it was like a very sad movie, and like everybody's like in their car now, like ready to like go home and go to bed. So I'm so happy that you found it funny.
I think
I think that was one of the
driving home.
great moments of it. I think that's, you know, it was always a treat to go to each scene and be like, wait, what are we saying in this? Because there's so many moments where you like, we're doing something and we get bogged down with like, oh man, this is a drama. We're doing trauma. This is it. And like our life doesn't exist that way. Like we have, you know, some sad moments and we have joyous moments and we have funny moments. And some of them really came naturally too. Like some of the things, like I remember even in our instance where like my firework doesn't light and we're kissing, like I could not for the life of me try to light that firework. And I'm like, it just is like, this is ridiculous, right? I'm trying to like be serious, but my fumbly hands can't make that happen. And so you get these like humorous moments where it's just like, it's just how it happens, how life happens.
Exactly right. I think that's what it is. It's how life is happening. Guys, I just want to thank you so much for hopping on this call and for sharing your beautiful film with us at Outfest. I think it's a film that's going to stay with people for a long time, for them to hold in their hearts. And I really can't thank you enough. So thank you all for the 10th time, for the 100th time.
Thank you.
And congratulations on
Thank
this
you.
excellent, beautiful film. And I can't wait to see what you all do next.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much.
And thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Sheldon.
Yes, thank you so much for
Matt.
watching.
Thank you, Daniel.